Hi there, my name's Jill Tiny. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learned an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Hi there, and welcome to the Being Human, Hidden Depths podcast. My name is Jill Tiny, and today I have an old friend with me. I was just clocking up how long we've known each other, but it's been quite a few years. So I'd really like to.
I'm sorry, from your point of view, I'm sorry it's so long. That's...
Charlie Lawson, thank you so much for joining me today. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me on. Nice, lovely to see you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. The sun is shining. We've had a brilliant summer. I hear you've been a bit busy over the summer, keeping yourself fit.
Yeah, I've got a little event coming up next week, which I've been training for a little while now. I'm a bit of a triathlon nut, and I'm going for an Ironman, which is a very stupid thing to try and do, to be quite honest. But I'll be glad when it's done.
When you read it and you see how far people have got to go, come and tell us the details. How far are you swimming? How far are you running? And how far are you cycling?
So it is swimming 2.4 miles. I'll go cycling next, so that's the order. It's 112 miles, and then a marathon 26.2. So 140.6 miles in total.
Is that when you come in the home straight? Is that on a flat? Have you been, or is it all up in here?
I'm told it's quite a flat course actually, which I'm quite up for, to be honest.
well, my son-in-law, when he did it, the last leg, I don't know, about 500 meters or something, was uphill. It was agony, and he had to do 2 circuits, so he'd already done it once, so he knew what it felt like, and then that was the final to get up there. And when we saw him the first round, he looked dead, and we thought he's never going to do it. And we were clocking on how long the lap should take him, and we were all standing there going, should we hit the pub, because we've got at least half an hour to go? And how long he was there, and the last leg, he all of us got this adrenaline.
You get the energy buzz just as you're approaching the end. I've definitely felt that before. And even actually one triathlon, it was only an Olympic triathlon this, but I remember it was an uphill, and they particularly said it was the last 500 meters or something. It wasn't far, but it was uphill, and they designated as the uphill sprint for the end. And loads of people did the sprint because it's the end, and you know when you're over that line, you can just collapse.
So can I say officially, you are stark staring bonkers?
But
also, when you're doing it, I know you'll be going around, and there'll be people that are much younger than you who are struggling, and there'll be people that are much older than you that are flying. So can I ask how old you are, and did you expect to be doing this at your age?
I think it's actually my age is something to do with it. I used to be a big runner. I will answer the question, by the way. I'm not trying to evade. I used to running was my thing. That's what I love. And I always said to my, a few years ago, I did the London Marathon. It's the only marathon I've done. I did it to raise money because I lost my dad. Long story, blah blah blah. I did a cool thing, raised a lot of money. That was cool. And I just love running because it's obviously it's physical exercise, but it's mental for me as well. Just if I don't go out to do some exercise, then I definitely get up. I'm not as effective during the day. I do get a bit crabby if it's a bit, and sometimes Hannah, my other half, will say, "Have you been just go out for a run?" So, and I said, running's so important to me, and exercise generally. I just said I'd love to be able to say whatever old age is. I'm not putting a number on that. I'd love to be still running at that. I don't want to not be able to run at any point in my life. So to carry on running, I thought to do the amount of exercise I want to do, I'd have to cut down the amount of running. Otherwise, I would knacker my legs and knees or whatever. So that's why I turned to triathlon. And I did a couple of triathlons. Had to learn to swim to do it. I could cycle, like the running bit. That was fine. But in the end, I ultimately had to do the ultimate triathlon, which is an Ironman. So I'm 45 to answer to a long way around your original question.
Oh, you're a spring chicken. You'll be fine there. That's okay. Have you done anything like Tough Mudder or any crazy stuff like that?
No, those things don't. I have to say, the thought of, I mean, I like the exercise, but the thought of having to go through a mud pit or be electrocuted or whatever they do on those things, oh no, that's not for me. So.
You're on a different mental wavelength, I think.
Yeah, you've got enough going on, just getting the event done. So
just getting around the course, yeah.
And actually,
all the other stuff,
I mean, without getting too geeky on triathlon stuff, it's obviously the swim, bike, run. There's those three disciplines, but for me, there's a fourth and a fifth discipline as well, especially on the bigger, longer ones like this. The sprint ones is less of an issue, but the fourth discipline being the transition. So you've got to get your wetsuit off, get your cycling stuff on. At the end, take before the run, put your bike away and get your running stuff on, all that kind of stuff. So that's an art in itself. And when you see it in the Olympics, I mean, it is unbelievable the way some of the, you see them on the bike braking hard up to the line. And if they go over the line, they're disqualified. So they've got to stop right there and then put the bike away, shoes on. And, it's just ridiculous. No, I mean, for me, in this, transition's about having a good sit down, to be quite honest. So,
yeah.
But the other one, the fifth discipline, and this is particularly the thing that applies in the longer distance, the Ironman and half Ironman, is nutrition. You've got to have the fuel in you, and the liquids, and otherwise, I mean, I'm going to be doing it. My dream goal is to do it in 12 hours. I don't think I will. I'm going to get it done, honestly. Just
I'm writing that down now. He said
it won't be. It won't be 12 hours. It's probably going to be 13 and a half hours. That's what I suspect I'll be, just based on my training. And in 13 and a half hours, I mean, that's more than half a day. You're going to need, and you're expending all the energy as well. You've got to eat. So that's the other big part that I've probably been the hardest bit to get right, honestly.
Or I think there's one harder bit, actually. The sixth bit.
Go on, what's the sixth? You're going to throw something at me, and I'm like, I
haven't got that on my notes. It's not in my training program. It's the mental strength. Because it must be so easy to talk yourself out of it while you're going around.
I'll be honest, I can certainly see why some people would have that, and I can see certainly why. For me, not an issue. That I just love it. I love doing it. There's nothing I like more than going for a long run.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love it. If there was the training on the bike, you have to go out. I mean, going out for 112 miles, that's the distance. I've been doing that or a bit more. Yeah. And that takes 7.5 hours. I mean, it takes a long time. And
so what do you think about all day long?
Well, hopefully you go with a mate and you have a bit of a chat with them.
All right.
Because if you're on your own, you're just, because when I'm running, I'll wear headphones and listen to a podcast or read a book or whatever. On a bike, you're on the road, so I don't tend to do that. It's just you want to keep your wits about you for traffic and so, that's probably been the only time that really affects. But generally, for me, the mental side is okay. I get it though. I remember when I did the marathon before. People talk about hitting the wall in a marathon.
Yeah.
I was so focused on a time to do it in.
Yes.
Crossing, this is London Marathon. If you know your marathons, about halfway is Tower Bridge when you go over there, and then you go off into Docklands. And I remember I just crossed Tower Bridge, and we're just turning right to go into Docklands, and I saw someone walking, and I thought, "What are they doing? Why would you be walking?
What's your problem?"
And then I realised they'd hit the wall, and it was that's when. So I'm not saying that mental strength isn't important. Clearly, it is, but I don't know. It's not the thing I find the hardest with this. I'm just motivated to get this sort of challenge done, I guess.
I think, well, motivation is great, but also there are some people that are so in their heads. We were talking earlier on about introverts, extroverts, kind of the difference in people. And sometimes when you're in your head, you can stop yourself doing so many things. And I know for me, running, I'm not a runner. Okay, I put my hands up. Couch to 5K is about my limit. But even then, when I'm jogging along, my brain is going for all sorts of other things. And I'm like, I should be doing, maybe I'm going to do that. And I'm like talking myself out of carrying on because I'm not enjoying it. It's not my buzz. Put me on a tennis court or table tennis or badminton or whatever, something with a racket, I'll be there all day. But this was kind of like, I'm talking myself out of it. And I think a lot of people have a concern around their mental strength. And I think it's all very well having a physical strength. You could be the most physical person in the world, but you can talk yourself out of
absolutely. And I guess it's because I love the activity that it's not such an issue if I'm thinking of other activities that I have to do. And totally with you on that. You can easily see situations where you go, oh yeah, can't be bothered. Yeah, I'm done. So yeah, no, I can see where we're going with that, definitely.
It's like Muhammad Ali. You know, he had the strongest mindset ever. He might not have been physically the best person to do the fight, but because of his mindset and how he got into the other person's mind, he was able to overcome any physical disability that he might have had against his opponent and carry on and win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fascinating to think that, you know, it's only me and my mind that's stopping me from achieving what I want to achieve, whatever that may be. Okay, so let's talk about how we met. I'd love to share some memories with people because I think one of the first times I remember meeting you was when you came to talk to the BNI group that I was part of over in Chelmsford. And I kind of saw you coming in thinking, I want to be at the front of the room like he is for a start. That was one of the things. And also how you had time for everybody. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard this about Richard Branson, is that people say that if he talks to you and you're in a room of 100 people, it feels like you're the only person in the room because he listens.
I have heard that said, yeah, definitely.
And that was how I felt about you. Afterwards, you spent time with everybody in the room because they were very keen to talk to you because, and another thing, and what about this? And there were a few people that had axes to grind, shall we say, for whatever reason around their performance or the performance of the group as a whole. But you had time for people and you weren't being dragged into their angst or their upset. You were like, okay, that's a really good point, really interesting. Actually, what I do, and you kind of went with you didn't douse them with water to cool them off, but you showered them with the kind of a caring attitude that made them kind of go, oh, he's a really nice bloke, that Charlie. I really like that Charlie. That other one's not so great, but I really like that Charlie. It was that kind of conversation that was going on.
I'm pleased I came home at work. Made an impression. I think an interesting thing to do, you mentioned people with an axe to grind, and I guess giving some context of that, I was running BNI in the UK, and so hence I was there as the figurehead for the organisation. So, you know, if someone did have a complaint or whatever it might have been, or a grievance in some way, then yeah, I'd be an obvious outlet to bring that to. Doesn't mean I could necessarily do anything about it. In fact, 99% of the cases I probably couldn't do anything about it, honestly. But I think what people really want is to know they've been heard, and that's really what that was about. And sometimes when in a situation where someone's annoyed or cross, whatever, I was going to use a more extreme word there. I'm glad I stopped myself. But you know, they're annoyed about something.
Yeah.
Sometimes actually the best way to take the stick, you know, if you fight fire with fire, if you like, and just go back in, go back at them with it, well, then you're just going to get people's hackles up. Yeah. And I had I mean, look, it's not to say that you can necessarily just roll over and say, right, yeah, my fault's everything, the whole time, clearly. But if you just draw the sting out of it and say, yeah, see what you mean, that's a nightmare, isn't it? Show some empathy.
Yes.
It goes quite a long way in building relationships terms. And I guess that's what we do in networking. We build relationships. And if you can build good relationships with people, then that's a good starting point for a lot of things. So yeah, that would probably be my general approach to that.
Yeah. I mean, 100 years ago, I used to work for local government. So you can imagine in the housing department, there were a few angry people that would come up and turn up, and they'd be and another thing. And I'd be like, I'm so sorry. That must be awful for you. And they're like, well, I'm not having a go at you, but I just wanted to, and you're straight away there. They're down. They're human beings. They need to be heard, as you say. It's just somebody to listen, to go, I feel your pain and I see what you're talking about. Sorry, I can't do anything about it, but yeah, it's interesting. So one of the other things I remember about you is the stories you used to tell. And one story that I've dined out on, and I will share this with you. I obviously tell people where it comes from. Because back in the day when I was in the BNI, it was the one where you were coming back from a Millwall football match.
Oh yes,
at McDonald's.
No, I hadn't been at the game. I just happened to. I lived in Bermondsey for a while, which is very near where they are. So yeah, go on. You.
I was going to say, would you like to tell the story, because it is so true, so true.
Well, no, I used it as an example of where you're trying to find referrals for people. I mean, that was the context in finding referrals, and what you can do when you've got a good group of referral partners and people you've got a relationship with, you've then got to train them effectively as your marketing force. And it was this one guy who'd used this particular thing. It was an osteopath, so looking for people to help them with their back pains and things like that. And I remember him, I can picture him doing, he did it physically. So from a kinesthetic point of view, he took it in really well. He just said, a good referral from me, showed everyone, is when people go like that and grimace and grab their neck or, their upper back or shoulder, whatever. And so I just had that plant. We all had that planted in my mind. I don't think anything of it until I'm coming back late one day. It's probably 10:30 at night. I'd been working, suddenly realized I haven't had anything to eat, hungry, had to just pop into a little convenience store that was open. And it had happened, been listening in the car on the radio to the football results, and Millwall had lost 4-1, I think, that night. I may have got that bit wrong.
They'd lost, yeah. They were upset.
They'd lost. And they don't have, the friendliest reputation, let's put it that way. And anyway, I was just minding my own business, grabbed something, just waiting behind someone, and there's a couple of people in front of me. And this guy in front of me, this huge guy, and I mean huge. I'm tall, I'm 6'5", but this guy was as tall, if not taller, and broader than me. And he had a little shirt on. I was like, big scary man. All I could think of, because I saw him do like this with his neck, I'm thinking, oh, that damn osteopath, I'm going to have to go and talk to him now. As it turned out, he was a lovely bloke and it was fine. But, I was in that dichotomy of, oh God, what do I do? Big scary man, or try and help my referral.
But it was helping both of them, wasn't it? That at the end of the day, he would have been very grateful for you if you can take that pain away. So you are helping two people at once, which is always a win-win, I think. So since then, I just wondered what now you have moved away from BNI and you're starting up your own business around the unnatural networker, or the unnatural public speaker, or even the unnatural promoter. And there's so many people out there that struggle with showing off about themselves, and we don't necessarily have to show off about ourselves. We can do it in a million different ways and get other people to show off for us, which I always find is the easiest. But now in your new guys, you must have a million stories that you tell. What's your current favorite when you're talking to people in that kind of ilk that is around being an unnatural network?
I genuinely think that my own experiences as an unnatural networker are the most obvious. And it's funny, I can picture one particular time. This isn't a particularly great story, but it just illustrates that I just genuinely am an unnatural networker. I was at a conference. It was a PSA, Professional Speaker Association conference. And I've been in that organization a few years, not very long. I'm not, I'm not particularly well known in the organization, but I know people there.
Yeah.
And there was one person in particular who I know very well, and she was saying, it was just at this conference at the break, and she just came up to me and said, "God, you really are an unnatural networker, aren't you?" Because I was there at the side of the conference, looking a bit.
Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me.
It's not that I don't want people to talk to me. I won't go up necessarily to be forthcoming and introduce myself. Or I say I won't. I will do it. It takes a leap of faith. It takes a nervous, to take a gulp and
Come
go.
On, I can do this.
Exactly. So I know that when I get into a conversation with anyone, I'm a human being. They're a human being. We can have a conversation. Look, I'm intelligent enough to know that they're not going to bite my head off.
Well, sometimes even if they do, and they go away, I'm not talking to you right now. Fair enough. Okay, it's not.
You can see the signs to make sure that you don't. There's enough signs that people give to say, well, actually, they would say that to me, so I won't go and talk to them anyway.
You need your eye contact, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. But genuinely, I am an unnatural networker, and sometimes people sort of say, I'm perhaps being introduced when I'm talking, they might say, and Charlie used to call himself the most unnatural networker. I say, no, I really do still call myself.
I am.
An unnatural networker. But yeah, it's what I'm thinking now. I've left BNI. It's a wonderful part of my life, and it's an amazing organization that makes a huge difference to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'm now still thinking I want to make a difference to a lot of people, because I think there's so many people out there in the big wide world who are unnatural networkers. It might be for different reasons. Maybe they're a bit shy and introverted. Maybe that's one reason. Maybe they've just had poor experience of networking. And how many times do you get people hard selling, or on LinkedIn or whatever, and you connect with them and immediately it's our 20% off widgets today or whatever. Yeah. It's just so many people go down that hard sell approach.
Yeah.
you know, they think, I'm going to a networking event, I've got to, you know, I've got to get some business, you know, and I understand where that comes from, because they're, you know, everyone's got to make a living, everyone's got to put food on the table.
But I always feel sorry
There's
for
just
them
better ways to do it.
they are uneducated and they need some help. So some people get angry and go, oh, I'm going to block them, and oh, that's terrible. They try to sell to me the minute they spoke to me. They don't know any different. They don't know how to do it. So exactly. I'm always ready to.
So I think there's a lot of people out there, and just, you know, that anyone watching or listening to this will have had that experience on LinkedIn or a network. It's just everyone has it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of people who need help, and there's so much networking and, you know, the power referral marketing and relationships can bring that people don't get to experience if they don't go and pursue it in some way. So that's the people I want to help.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone makes these grand assumptions. Everyone knows how to go networking because it's been around for such a long time. But in reality, it is about building relationships, and it's this fear of the what if. I mean, another memory of you, which confirms what you've just said about the PSA meeting. I don't know if you remember this, but we went to a gala dinner where Bill Clinton was the keynote speaker.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Tony Robbins was there, and all the celebs were there, and all the captains of industry were there.
I do seem to remember, by the way. I'm going to blow my own trumpet, and I don't usually do this. As you know, I was on the speaker bill for that event, not at the Bill Clinton level. I have to stress. I was on a panel discussion, and I was added in, and on the event website for that, I've got a screenshot of it somewhere. I must dig it out. On the event or the speaker page, it had Bill Clinton #1. It had, I forget who the others were, but I was literally number 3. And then there was a whole long list. And I was like, I must dig out the screenshot.
Yeah, definitely. That's great PR. But I remember during the night, and I think I'd introduced you to a couple of people that I knew, and I was kind of talking to different people, and I looked around and you were stood by the wall, literally a little wallflower, and I went up to you and I went, what are you doing? And you went, what? I said, you're supposed to be networking. What's going on? And you went, oh, no, I don't do that. I don't go and talk to strangers. And I was like, that was the first time I was like, oh my goodness. I couldn't.
No, I'm very, very keen to stick to my brand. You know, I have to practice what I preach.
Yeah, I know, but it just then made me all the more impressed that you were part of this organization. And then I realized how much you must have come out of your comfort zone in the early days in order to fulfill what you were preaching to everybody. This is how you network.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, BNI definitely taught me everything I needed to know about networking. But I think the interesting thing I've seen since, and I can picture times when this has happened. In fact, I remember this was a specific situation. It was one of the first times I'd ever given a talk on networking in a non-BNI sense. So I was invited to come and speak. I forget the event. And I was due on, and I think I was the third on. There were 3 speakers, and the first or second speaker started talking about networking. And I was like, oh God, what am I going to do? He's saying the stuff I'll say. Ugh. And I remember him sharing this particular anecdote about how he'd made a networking faux pas. And he'd said something along the lines of, look, I'd done my preparation. I'd looked at the delegate list. Oh, this guy, I really need to speak to this person here. This is a good person for me. So he'd done some research, very sensible. Thought, right, I need to speak to that person, want to try and build a relationship. And when he got to the event, he saw this person and he went over and talked to them. The thing was, this person was in conversation with someone else. Ooh. And so his faux pas, his point was, well, I shouldn't interrupt. And yeah, take his point. Clearly you shouldn't. But at that point, me sat in the audience thinking, oh God, am I going to change everything I've talked today? I was like, no, I don't need to, because I, as the unnatural networker, wouldn't have gone up to them in the first place.
Yes.
I'd have struggled with that. So from that point on, I realized that I've got a message for people. Yeah, look, the principles of networking are not complicated. Let's be honest. We're human beings. We know how to talk to people. We know how to build relationships. Think of your best mate. You know how to talk to them and build a relationship with them. So you know how to do it. It's just, you've got to do it in a different context. And we put this word networking on it.
Yeah.
That's the bit that freaks people out. Take away networking, in deliberate air quotes there, and it's actually just talking to people. We all can do that. And actually, I realized that for most networking experts talk about networking because they love it.
Yes.
They absolutely love it. They think there's nothing better than going and talking to a room of strangers. I think there's nothing worse than going to a room of strangers. I know that we have to do it, so I kind of deal with the situation and get around it. And that's where so many people are. So I headed up a networking organization, but Whisper It didn't really like networking. Yeah, there you go.
It's interesting, isn't it? Somebody said to me not so long ago, "Oh, it's all right for you, Jill. You love getting up in front of an audience. You love, doing this and talking to everybody." And I was like, it wasn't always that way. Because I remember when I was first in business, and my husband had been in BNI for a long time, and he said, "Right, you've got to go to a different chapter, and we're going to do this and this." So this is back in 2007, something like that. And I went at a ridiculous time in the morning, which I hated, and met a ridiculous group of people that seemed a bit weird and wanted to sell me stuff. And had a breakfast that I didn't really want because it was too early in the morning, and how can you eat that time of day anyway? And I spent 6 weeks going to these meetings going, how the hell can I get out of this? Because my husband knew that for him it worked, and you do this, you do this, you do this, you get business. So if you go and do it in another group, then we'll both get double business and it's going to be great. I literally spent 6 weeks trying to get out of it because I didn't enjoy it. I went with butterflies in my tummy. I kind of felt sick the night before, and I'm like, why am I doing it? It made no sense. And then I joined, and then about 2 weeks later, they said, will you be president or director or whatever it was at the time? And I was flattered. Didn't cross my mind that there was a reason why. The new girl gets to be in charge straight away.
Really happened after 2 weeks, but yeah.
And what was
take it as a compliment. Take it as a compliment. There you go.
Oh, well, I did, but then you get sort of pushed up the ladder and everything, and now I look back and go, wow, the stuff I achieved because of that relationship within the community. I mean, Robert French was in charge of the region I was looking after. He invited me to Malaysia and Singapore, and it was just, and talking at conference and going to LA and all the stuff that I got to do. Invited to Spain, just nothing to do with BNI, but I would never have been invited had it not been for BNI. And all of a sudden I'm a speaker. I'm like, hang on, when did that happen? I'm an international speaker. Not that long ago, I didn't even want to go to that very first meeting or the very first 6 meetings. And now people are telling me, oh, it's all right for you because you're, hang on a minute. It's not necessarily. You see people and you think, oh, they're natural. It's okay for them. We all have to learn this stuff. Nobody does it like that on day one. And as you say, it's about making relationships. It's building those.
There's a couple of things. Firstly, I was going to say, everyone has to develop, definitely, and there's no question about that. Professional speaking is a good one. I'm going to throw it in there because it gives me accountability. I'm being public about it. I'm writing my 3rd book now, The Unnatural Public Speaker. And there's a lot of people for whom public speaking's a thing. It relates to networking in many ways, because not that you definitely associate networking with public speaking, but you will often speak in public when networking. But there's also people who go on to, it's just part of their role, they're part of their job, part of, they have to motivate the sales team, whatever it might be. There's so many people that do that. Actually, public speaking for me, I've always found, I'm not saying I was perfect when I was younger, and obviously it's a journey to develop your skills, but I've never had the nervousness around it, the issues that I have with networking, for example. So it's a bit of a cheat to still call it the unnatural public speakers. I've always been a bit more natural with it. But the fact is that you do develop over time. I think that's crucial. And the other one, just coming out of your point there, in terms of all the experience you get, you just never know. It's the randomness of networking that I love. You didn't know that going to that meeting, okay, bit of a chore, don't want to do it. Oh, go on, I'll do it. Yeah. And look at all the things that came out. The random effects that consequences, the random results of what happens because you meet this person and they introduce you to that person, they introduce you to that person, and that leads you to X, Y, and Z, whatever it might be. Yeah. I love all that.
I mean, that's happened to me this week, actually. It's really weird that I did a very open post on LinkedIn saying, how do you deal with the butterflies, and when do you know it's butterflies for a good reason or butterflies for a bad reason? And over the years, I've had like the butterflies exactly the same, the 6-week thing of going into BNI, and I look back and go, thank goodness I got over that, and I didn't listen to myself and go, actually, I'm not going to do it. And then there was the butterflies of working with a client that I didn't really want to work for. And then I thought, well, if I just do it for a couple of months and it was awful. It was a terrible time, and I wish I'd never done it just because the money was good. Don't go down that road. It really wasn't worth it. So I put a little post on LinkedIn about, genuine question. How can you really tune into what's worth plowing through and just suffering and getting on with it, and what's actually know when to say no. And one lady gave me a beautiful answer on LinkedIn. I was like, I love this. Now I'm stalking her. Like, what's your website? What's your LinkedIn profile like? And it turns out that she works for a university in a business hub. Literally the day before, I'd been talking to my team saying, where are we going to put our next event on and who's going to help us? And they said, you know what, we should focus on universities and business hubs. And not only that, is she worked for a university that we had put an event on in June, so we were already connected, not literally connected, but I know her university and she's aware that we had an event there, so we hadn't actually met. But I'm like, well, that's serendipity, isn't it? It's coming. Coincidence? Probably not. I don't know, but it just, how these things, you can sort of, in hindsight, you look back and you can join the dots and go, ha. So we'll see where that goes. We don't know yet. So we've heard that you're a sports bonkers man. And one of the things that I've noticed I've stolen from Simon Sinek is that on his podcast, if you ever listen to it, and I do recommend people go and listen to it, to understand leadership and coming forward, what he does with his guests on his podcast, he asks them for their happiest childhood memory. So that's the first thing I'd like to ask you, is what is your happiest, and I didn't ask you this beforehand, so you couldn't prep and think of something clever. I just want you to bang. What's the first thing you think of when you think of your childhood memories that make you smile?
First thing I say, I'm rubbish at remembering stuff from my childhood. So I'm just stalling for time right now, honestly. No, happiest childhood memory. Okay, this is the first one that comes to mind.
This is what I'm after, the first one.
I've prepped it. It is a sporting thing. It is related to my football team. 2 days after my 14th birthday, and I remember this specifically because it was a birthday present. My birthday is the 12th of April. This game was on the 14th of April, 1991. Spurs played Arsenal in the FA Cup semi-final. It was the first FA Cup semi-final ever to be played at Wembley because there was massive demand for, two big North London sides. Spurs didn't have a chance. Arsenal were amazing and thrashed them. And Gaza scored his free kick, and it was amazing. So there you go. I was there for that. That's the first one. That's the first one that came to mind.
No, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Because what Simon likes to do is to kind of illustrate that these happy memories reflect and come out into your genius at a later date. So
I'd like to say I was a genius playing for Spurs, but I can't claim that.
But just if you relate it to being in the crowd, enjoying the energy, but you didn't have to talk to anybody necessarily, but you were all on the same side and you were all obviously the two sides, but for you, in your supporting your team, you were ready to go there and cheer and do the best for them, but you didn't have to kind of be on the pitch and be seen in that way. You could be part of the crowd and still connect with people. So it's interesting that you have spent in your more grown-up years helping people to connect and be part of a community. And you've got a million stories of where different groups in BNI and probably beyond have helped people incredibly because they have been such a tight-knit community. I'm liking. Sorry, go on.
I was just. You've got me thinking on childhood memories. I mean, I hadn't particularly made that connection. I can see where you're going with that. I do think childhood memories, or what our experience in childhood, form us so much as we go into adults. Either because our parents are often the most obvious role models, but it's not necessarily a parent. It might be a sibling, it might be a friend, it might be someone else. But take your parents just for a sec. You'll probably either go towards what they do or you'll rebel against what they do. And I can think of another childhood memory. This is probably adolescence memory. It's probably 16, 17, probably that sort of age. And I think it really forms helped form where I am. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a happy memory. It's just a memory. What I can picture, I had mum and dad, two sisters, older, younger sister. So I'm in the middle, and middle children definitely have it the worst. I can confirm that. And it always, it's not a particular day, but I can picture the setting that it happened a lot. And it would always be a weekend family meal. So weekend, you're not rushing. Everyone's sort of sitting around a bit and chatting. I'm thinking particularly in the, late autumn, early winter where it's cold and, it's closing in outside and, it's cozier inside as a result. The kitchen's usually the hub of energy in most families. So it's in the kitchen round the dinner table, and I can picture after the food there'd always be conversation, and it would usually be started by my older sister. She's always banging on about something. She's got I'd love her dearly, but she's always got something to say. And usually she'd engage it'd be my dad that would bite first. It might be an issue of what's going on at the time. It doesn't matter what it was.
Yeah.
And the conversation I'm not saying they'd be getting into an argument, but the conversation would escalate quickly.
Yeah.
Other sisters would join in. My mum would sometimes, but I never would. And it's not because I didn't have anything to say. It's not because I didn't have an opinion on it. It's not because I couldn't get a word in edgeways, because I could, be forceful enough to do that. I didn't have the confidence necessarily to put my point across. I didn't necessarily feel comfortable promoting myself and getting out there. And that's just to my family. And I still have that now. And I think that's formed, a way. It's where I'm not so keen to go out and network and just chat to people, because, I think that they're going to put me down? I don't know. Maybe. Often, if it came to my sister, and I say I love her dearly, this isn't a criticism in a way, she'd always have a response back. She'd always say, but what about this? And my argument would be rendered null and void.
Yeah.
So it definitely formed me as I am now. And I don't think I'd be the unnatural networker and the unnatural promoter and all this stuff if it hadn't been for that. So our childhood experiences definitely form who we are and inform how we live our lives as adults. No question about it.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? I've got two daughters, and me and the eldest one are the ones that go at the dinner table, and my husband and the youngest one are like, do we get a word in edgeways? And quite often they'll say to us, can we speak now? Is that okay? Yeah. And then they kind of, all right, just jump in, just enjoy. It's lively and banter, but
But that's what we so often see, and this is, again, no criticism of anyone. As my family generally were more extrovert. Maybe my dad not so much. He liked a values and fact-based discussion. He enjoyed that. I'm definitely more introverted. The rest of my family more extroverted. And actually, I don't know if there's always the realization that people, introverts want to say something, but they don't necessarily feel they can do all the time. And you sometimes have this. I have it now sometimes with Hannah, my other half. If I've had a busy day, especially if I've been talking to a lot of people, I'll literally. She says I have a word limit. I've said enough words.
That's a good one.
Actually, I just want to chill out now. And we all know that introvert. Well, I say we all know. Some people know introverts gain their energy from going and curling up and reading a book or watching a film or just chilling out. Extroverts gain their energy by going and having a party and going to talk to people. So it's just two ways, and there's no right way or wrong way. It's just everyone's different.
Well, I don't think, from my mind, a lot of people are ambiverts, neither one nor the other, but they can choose where to be. So for a long time, people used to think that my husband was extrovert. But he'd much rather be sat in a cupboard with a spreadsheet than he would going to talk to people. But when he goes to talk to people, he knows how to up his energy and get in conversation. So, and everyone goes, oh yeah, Alan, his life is all the party, he's fantastic. I was like, you should see him when he's at home. It's not quite the same.
And the other thing is who you're with as well. If you're with a bunch of old friends, well, it's much easier. You can relax. You can be yourself. You don't have to be. Like you say, your husband, he'll elevate himself. He'll elevate the conversation. He'll effectively put on an act to be presenting himself in the right way.
Yeah.
When you're with an old friend or friends, you don't have to. You can be yourself, and it's a different story. So it depends on the setting as well, definitely.
Yeah, and also it's what story you're telling yourself. Again, it's back to the old mindset thing, isn't it? It's like whether you can or you can't, you're right.
You're right. Yeah.
You think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Another question to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
What would you say for Charlie Lawson is your genius? What is the thing that what is your talent that you can offer to people that you see as kind of like, well, everyone does that, don't they? But actually it's something that's quite a God-given talent for you. So
I'm wondering if I already touched on it slightly. It was that point. I mean, if we're talking about, in terms of how I can help people, I help other unnatural networkers. Definitely, they're the people I can help. Not say I can't help a natural networker, someone who there's definitely tips and tricks around networking and public speaking I could help them with. But unnatural networkers are really the key people that I want to help. And I think the biggest thing for me, and if you like, my, God-given talent to help them is appearing the same as them, because I am an unnatural networker. It's not. This is what I was saying before in terms of how, a lot of networking experts talk about networking because they love it. They're passionate about it. They just think it's the best thing since sliced bread. It's brilliant. It's easy. Just go and talk to them. Just go and chat to people. No problem. I recognise that it's not for some people, and it's like, really, I've got to go talk to that guy. Oh no, I can't do it. I'm one of them effectively. And I guess I have I really enjoy public speaking. I think I've said already. It's my happy place. Some people say, talking about, we were talking about before, they say, come on, look at you on a stage. You're extrovert. You can chat away and do what you like. For me, okay, yes, I am on stage and I am on show and I am effectively promoting, but that's the time when I'm actually not talking to anyone. The bit that scares me is going to talk to people in a small talk type situation. So it's much easier to do that. So I guess I have a style and I'm 1 inch off a giant. I've been told.
Oh God.
I'm a big guy, but I have a big smile. In fact, I'll give you another childhood memory. Sometimes this one comes out. I'm surprised it didn't just before when you asked. I'm so known for smiling.
Yeah.
This is when I was at junior school. I must have been 8 or something. And it was in the playground and everyone's playing football or whatever. But there was one teacher, Mr. Taylor, his name was, and he'd often just chat to some of the kids. And, nice guy. I remember him saying one day to me, and there were a few people around, he said, Charlie, I will give you £10 if you don't smile for 30 seconds. When you're 8, £10 is a lot of money. Yeah. And I was like, right, got it. I lasted about half a second. I've always been a smiley person. So when I'm on a stage and talking, and I'm being empathetic, and I'm one of them effectively. I am an unnatural myself. Plus, I've got this big smile, and I have a connection in that way. That's probably the close. I don't know if that's a good answer, but I think that's probably what I would consider.
Yes,
those factors creates my superpower.
When did you get tall?
I remember when I went to secondary school. We're going through this with my son now. He's 12. And he's shooting. I mean, this year it's just ridiculous. He's gone past Hannah now. She's gutted. She knows she's going to be the smallest in the family soon. But yeah, I remember when I went to. So we were talking about it with him the other day. I know when I went to secondary school, I was probably in the top 10% roughly, but I wasn't ridiculous. By the time I left school, I was in the top 1 or 2. I think I was the second tallest guy. In the year.
So there was a giant also there.
It was during my teens. I grew. I wasn't massive when I was a younger kid.
When you think about going to a networking meeting, one of the things you want to be is remembered when you leave. So you want to have spoken to as many people as possible, but in such a way that you're going to be remembered,
or as few people as possible. I might argue, because that's I'm saying that as the unnatural networker.
When I say as many as possible, not here's my card. I want to go and have good conversations with people to make the most of your time, rather than stick with the one person that you happen to know already. You need to go and have those other conversations. But being remembered for you is half the battle done, because you walk in the room and everyone goes, oh, hello, Charlie. So you've got
yes and no. Yes and no. Look, there are other people who are 6'5". Some people.
Yeah, right. Go on.
Sometimes when I'm just out and about somewhere with the family, they go, oh, the kids go, Dad, look, there's someone as tall as you. And I'm like, yeah, there are other people around.
Osman, I think, is about the only other one I can think of. But go on.
I get where you're coming from, but I think there's a way that anyone can be memorable at a networking event. The challenge is, so many people just approach a networking event the same way and have their prepared spiel, if you like. Yeah, we can do this. These are our services. We're great at it. Blah blah blah. Utterly tedious. That's not going to be memorable. It just isn't interesting. What is interesting is when you do one of two things. One, we've touched on already. Tell a story. When you tell a story, people relate to it, especially if it's related to how they feel about life or their industry, or something that they can particularly latch onto. So that's one thing. People remember stories. And the other thing is, again, getting away from the everyday spiel you'll have at a networking event. My business does this, your business does that. Don't talk about that. My favorite networking question, and I would encourage anyone to do it, is to say, what are you into? What do you like to do? And it doesn't matter what it is, honestly. Sometimes pretty much every time you'll have some shared connection, in which case you'll have a conversation that you're excited about. So I might engage someone in a conversation about triathlons, then we can go away for ages and we can talk about triathlons. Great. On other occasions, there won't be any common ground. Of course, that will happen. But I can picture a conversation I had with one lady one time, and she was really into crochet. I said, what are you into? And she said, I love crochet. I'm like, I don't know the first thing about crochet. I'm never going to be into crochet. But she was so passionate about it, I couldn't help be, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm never going to do it myself, but she's memorable because of that.
Yeah.
So either you'll have the common ground, in which case you'll want to catch up again, because next time you say, oh, how was that last triathlon you did, or whatever you talked about, or you'll just remember them. Oh, you were the one that loved crochet, weren't you? That helps make you memorable. So I think anyone can be memorable.
It's being memorable for the right reasons. And also, I think being memorable as well is being a good listener. Is exactly what you're saying with the crochet lady, because you were like, oh, fascinating, tell me more. You know, and all of a sudden she's like, oh, isn't he nice? He wants to know more about crochet, you know. And well, it's a wonderful skill. I can't do it. I can't do it to save my life, but it is a wonderful skill. And it's just, so that's my question to people when I talk to them is, what are you passionate about? I don't care what you do. I don't care how much you earn.
This is the thing. So everyone thinks you've got to talk about business.
Yeah.
The people. If we're going to do business with people or refer business to people, we need to know who they are as people. And relationships, that's what relationships building is about. So you've got to.
And that's how you remember them. You remember when you get back from a business, a networking session, even if it's been online, it's the ones that you've had those kind of personal conversations with, and then you've got, oh yeah, I know who to put them in touch with, or I can connect them to this person, or this is, oh, I know somebody that needs what they do, but you've remembered them for other reasons that are more altruistic. They've got a deeper purpose, or there's a reason for them doing their business. And this is why I love B corporations at the moment. And if you come across many of those, but when a company has gone through the not small effort of creating and becoming a B corporation, as a B Corp rather, all the boxes you have to tick, you've got to jump through a hell of a lot of hoops, but they are saying, I am a business for good. I'm a business that is good to my customers and good to my staff and good to my suppliers, and go above and beyond what it means to be good for the climate, all of those kind of things. So all of a sudden you've got, oh, if you know you're a B Corp, it's like, oh, brilliant. What's the latest thing that you're up to? What have you done? And you've got a fascinating conversation about how you can make an impact in other ways, apart from just, I'll sell you this and you sell me that. And we've got an exchange.
Common ground makes such a difference when it comes to being memorable and, you know, the building relationships process.
And for me, I think I'm more likely to work with and buy from a business that is making a dent in the world in a good way, you know, and showing people that you don't just have to be transactional, you can actually do some good around you as well. Going back to the stories thing, I will just say this quickly. One of the things for us at Collaboration Global, we've got a million stories, not around networking, but one of the stories that I like to tell, that when people say, well, why are you part of Collaboration Global? One guy was a member, and he used to stand at the front of the room, and he was a sales trainer, very clever man, very cool dude, very chill, you know, very nice. And then one day he did this presentation, and at the end he sort of dropped in that the fact that he hadn't spoken to his dad for a little while. And we're like, oh, why is that then? You know, oh, no, it's fine, it's good. I just don't talk to my dad. Well, how long is it? Oh, about 7 years, something like that. Oh, okay. And after that, the community kind of went, So one or two people went up to him at the end of that meeting and went, pick the phone up, just give your dad a call. No, I'm fine, it's good, it's good. Really? Just, you know, it's your dad. Just, you know, have a phone call. And he thought about it and went, oh, well, yeah, maybe. And then we gave him some coaching around that. And then he went off on a little personal development course, and he came back, and people were still kind of nudging him. And he's like, oh, I'll be the grown up. So he rang his dad, and it was a brilliant conversation. So he said, Dad, do you want to meet your grandchildren? The dad didn't know he had 2 grandchildren. The grandchildren didn't know they had a granddad. So he met them, they all got on. Because he spoke to his dad, he then got to speak to his brother, because that had also been a rift because of the same reason. I don't know what the reason was, but that was so he got his brother back as well. And a year later, his dad died. So had he not picked the phone up at that time, because we were kind of like nudging him, he wouldn't have had that last year, and his children would never have met their granddad. And so for me, that is the power of a community together, whether it's a business community, whether it's a mastermind group, or whatever the community is just being there for each other, but also challenging each other to step up to what's needed. If there's something that's unforgiven or something that's not resolved, it's always going to be fidgeting around inside of you somewhere, even though you've gone, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's okay. There's always a little part of you that goes, but maybe I should pick the phone up. And for whatever reason, I mean, we had one lady who had been sexually abused as a child by her dad. But she was able to forgive him and actually nursed him through ill health, because she'd kind of resolved it between the two of them. She didn't forgive him as in it's okay what you did. She forgave him to release it from herself, so she didn't have to carry that huge burden that was on her shoulders all the time. So Collaboration Global, that doesn't happen every month, every week, but those are the sort of stories that make me go, that's why you connect up with like-minded and like-hearted people, so that you can be your best self. So whether you are in that room and you're one of the extroverts that are like, woohoo, yay, there's always going to be something that somebody else can help you with. And whether you're an introvert that's going, no, I'm fine, I don't need to talk to anybody, that's okay, there's someone else that can say, do you want to have a chat over here, when we can find out if we can help. So I think that's the stories that I like, are the ones that are having this personal impact on people. And as a result, actually, sometimes you can make an awful lot of money out of it as well. We've had stories about lots of money, but they're not the ones that spring to mind when people say, tell me a story about your community. So I just thought I would share that as one of my favorite stories in Collaboration Global. I've just looked
lovely. I mean, amazing stories, honestly.
Well, there's many others like that. It just kind of blows my mind that when human beings get together.
Well, I'll give you an example. My favourite BNI story, this is just because we were talking about BNI before, but to make the point that, BNI is an organisation that is primarily there to help people generate more business. That's why we do networking mainly, isn't it? To get referrals for our business. But my favourite ever BNI story was one that I've probably shared it before. I don't know if I've shared it with you. I was chatting to this guy in a meeting. Or just before a meeting one time, and I just said, "How was your weekend?" And his answer, he was on cloud nine. He was so happy with life. I said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "My daughter got married at the weekend." I was like, "Cool." And I said, "How did it go? What was the deal?" And he said that ever since his daughter had been born, some 30 years previously, he was nervous at the thought that one day he would have to do a father of the bride.
Oh, bless him.
One day,
Yeah.
Baby. Obviously, she's not getting married anytime soon, but it was like, to do this speech. And I said, "Well, how did it go?" Because he delivered it at the weekend. He said, "It was brilliant. It was so good. I loved it."
Excellent.
And I said, "Well, how? What was the deal?" He said, "Honestly, I didn't say what I would say in my BNI meeting, but I imagined that I was at my BNI meeting,
lovely,
delivering to a group of people and he delivered a lovely story and a lovely eulogy about his daughter. And I just that was why he was so happy. What he thought BNI was brilliant, because it had given him the ability to do that, and it cut out all this worry that he'd had for 30 odd years. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, when my daughter got married, me and my husband fought over who was going to do the speech. No, I want to. No, he won in the end, which is a shame.
Both do one. Why not?
Well, there were reasons. There were too many people that wanted to stand up and say how wonderful this couple were, so we had to kind of hone it down. But I've got another daughter, so it's all right. I'll get my turn. It's fine. But I thought you were going to tell me the story, which has always stayed in my mind, when there was a chapter, I think it was in Ireland, and a guy had his business or his house burnt to the ground, and they all rallied around him and kept the business going.
There's various stories like that.
Amazing.
I'm not going to remember the details off the top of my head, but yeah, it's stories like that. There was one I heard in Germany a year or so ago where the guy had a horrible accident. I think it was a motorbike accident, but basically unable to walk, paralyzed, mind still very sharp. And his chapter just worked everything out for him such that he was able to thrive, and he did even better in his next year in business because his chapter had done he still had to deliver his service and products and so on. But they just an amazing story about collaborating together, because you want to help someone in a time of need.
Yeah, but that's the benefit of a strong relationship within that community, because there will be other groups out there that have gone, oh, that's sad, never mind, and they'd have carried on doing their own thing and not even put their hand in their pocket to help. But the ones that have spent time with each other and building those relationships, then that's when all the magic starts to happen, because people care enough to do something about it, and they care enough to challenge you to say, look, come on, let's help you with this. What do you need? And so it goes on. Well, listen, I'm really excited for you for the future. At the beginning of this wonderful next episode for your life, at a mere,
it is, yeah, it's
mere 45.
Yeah.
So when's the next book going to come out?
Put you on the spot. I suspect I will get it written in the next what are we now? Probably in the next 3 to 6 months. I suspect. So sometime next year. I'm guessing a little bit there.
Yes. It's one of those things, isn't it? Sometimes you get it done really, really quickly, and other times it's like, oh.
I'm definitely not one. That's what I found with having done 2 books so far. I'm not one to just say, right, I'm going to block myself away for 2 weeks and get it done. I just can't do it. I do a little bit here, a little bit there, and it just fits into my life. So I'll do the same thing again.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I've looked at all my notes here. I think I've asked you practically everything that I want to. One quick one.
Probably this is the tricky one you're going to stick in the end.
Well, no, I was just thinking, we've gone through what's your genius and your childhood memories and everything, but what makes you angry? What makes you really kind of think that's just not right?
Middle lane drivers on the motorway. It's just what is wrong with them, quite frankly?
Isn't that against the law now? I think they've made a law where you.
It is, but I just don't quite see how you can police it until every inch of motorway is cameraed, and I suppose that will be one. I don't know. It just really bugs me. Maybe I should just stop. There you go. That's what makes me angry.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Nice one to end on a high. Listen, Charlie, thank you so much for spending some time. I love hearing about your journey as being an unnatural networker and an introvert, and yet nothing's going to hold you back. It's brilliant. I absolutely excited for your future and what's going to come next, and I want to see that copy of that book soon. If anybody's listening to this and they think, oh, he's been describing me and I need to talk to him, what's the easiest way to get hold of you?
Probably LinkedIn is the easiest. Just search Charlie Lawson on LinkedIn. Email charlie@unnaturalsuccess.com, charlie@unnaturalsuccess.com, or the website unnaturalsuccess.com. That's awesome. Probably the easiest way.
Lovely. Well, thank you again. It's been an absolute joy.
No,
hopefully we'll do part 2 and we'll find out about the Ironman. Good luck with that, by the way, when you do it. Yeah. And make sure you don't do yourself a mischief with those jellyfish. Thanks ever so much, Charlie. See you soon. Cool.